Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the work done on the old Skeena Bridge last year got recognized, the Thornhill and Terrace Fire Departments will start paying volunteers, and one of BC's longest-serving MLAs is stepping away.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening. I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond. The work that was done by WSP Canada Inc. on the repairs of the old Skeena Bridge last year recently got rewarded for the job that was done. WSP Canada Inc. was given the award for construction management and supervision services on that project as part of a presentation that took place yesterday, where the provincial government gave out awards for engineer work that is said to keep people moving. The presentation took place at the BC Transportation Conference for the Association of Consulting Engineering Companies in Vancouver, and part of the reason the work done on the old Skeena Bridge was recognized was due to the fact that it was able to be finished 3 months ahead of schedule. Urban Systems Limited also won the Specialized Engineering Services Award for replacing a decommissioned building with the new Terrace Commercial Vehicle Inspection Station on Highway 16. Reports have come out to reveal that a man has died after being struck by a train on the CN rail tracks in the city of Terrace. This incident happened early Saturday morning on February 10th, and it's not currently clear on how the man, who's said to be likely in his early 30s, was able to get onto those tracks. The more exact location of the incident was said to be part of the track that is parallel to the 4,800 block of Highway 16, or about across from Denny's. BC's Provincial Coroner's Service are the ones that are currently investigating this death, and while not all details of the death are clear, it is believed that the man was by himself, and there's no suspicion of possible foul play. It was recently announced by both the Thornhill Fire Department as well as the Terrace Department that they will begin paying their volunteers. The reasoning for this decision is said to be because the departments need bolstering in order to be able to provide adequate emergency response in all situations. In Terrace specifically, the number of volunteers had reportedly dropped down to only 10, which is below the number of people that professional associations recommend be at a structure fire. The recommended number is 15 people, but the average number that responded to such fires in Terrace in 2022 was only at 8. As far as payment numbers go, the current total budget for such payments is at $50,000, which figures to give out $25 an hour to volunteers called out to an emergency and $22 an hour for attendance at weekly training sessions. The BC Real Estate Association says home sales in the first month of this year increased nearly 30% compared with January 2023. The association says that there were 3,979 sales completed last month, with an average price of $957,909, a 10.5% jump from the same time last year. The association's chief economist Brendan Ogmanson said the numbers show sales clearly trending upward as 2024 kicked off with a dollar value of $3.8 billion in sales for the month. Ogmanson says the numbers point to declining mortgage rates and further interest rate cuts expected by the Bank of Canada this year as key drivers of the sales increase over 2023. Coming up next, cherry farmers are very concerned over recent temperature fluctuations. Welcome back. A small business owner in the Tri-Cities is taking her former landlord to the BC Human Rights Tribunal, alleging he pressured her to have a sexual relationship in exchange for cheaper rent. The legal action comes after she shut down her cafe and went public with her claims. CTV's Abigail Turner has the details.
For 2 years, this was Jerica Hackett's passion project, the Good Wolf Cafe in Port Coquitlam. When her lease came up for renewal, she claims the landlord made an offer that shocked her.
He made a proposition that he would reduce my rent if I got naked in front of him twice a month, and expands on it can happen once, twice, 3, 4 times a month, and it'll be $200 each time.
Terrified, she began recording their conversations the next time they spoke and posted a small portion online.
1 hour together in a 3-movie talk. Yeah. Can't have any time. I give to podcast.
CTV News has reviewed the unedited version where the man suggests dinner and dancing, then disrobing in his office. Days after making the recording, Hackett decided to close shop and move.
the initial reaction was just absolute shock, but as I processed it after the conversation ended over the weekend, I just became saddened because I realized that I couldn't stay.
On Wednesday, Hackett's lawyer filed a BC human rights complaint on her behalf, writing in part, the harassment created a hostile and offensive environment for her as a female business owner and tenant.
As soon as it occurred to me that there might have been other people that were impacted that didn't get support, I knew I was going to do something about it.
CTV News tried contacting the landlord, but did not answer after calling and showing up at his house. Hackett plans to reopen her cafe and start a new chapter as she prepares for next steps with the Human Rights Tribunal.
I just want to see accountability. I want to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
The wild temperature swings we've seen over the last couple of months have BC cherry farmers sounding the alarm. As CTV's Martin McMahon reports, growers fear it could be their most difficult season ever, and it could mean that you'll have to pay more to buy local.
Okanagan orchards are renowned across Canada for their fruit, but this year the cherry crop is in jeopardy.
We're in a very tough and almost the most challenging situation that we've been in.
A sudden blast of Arctic air in mid-January saw unusually mild temperatures swiftly plunge to sub-30 degrees, shocking and even killing some plants.
That's what's really caused the significant damage is that the trees didn't have enough time to get winter hardy with the positive temperatures before the cold snap.
From peaches to apricots to plums, it could mean you'll pay more for BC fruit, if you can find it.
Supply and demand. When there's a shortage of a product, prices tend to go up.
Given the anticipated damage, they're pleading for help from the province.
Make the insurance programs better so they're more favorable for us farmers. Just end of the day, every farmer is looking for, we need funding, some sort of funding that we can just support, that we can get through the year.
We asked the Premier if any help is coming, but he didn't make any promises.
The Ministry of Agriculture is working with farmers and working on identifying ways that we can provide support both around replanting as well as the economic impact through our crop insurance programs.
In the meantime, farmers are scrutinizing their trees each day, hoping the damage won't be as bad as it looks right now. Martin McMahon, CTV News, Vancouver.
Now to the violent extortion attempts that have triggered fear across the country, including in Metro Vancouver. The RCMP recently announced that they've launched a national team to help local police forces solve these crimes. CTV's Shannon Patterson has more.
Arsons in Edmonton, shootings in Brampton and Mississauga, crimes allegedly linked to a multi-province extortion plot targeting South Asian business owners. A man who claims he's involved spoke to a CTV News reporter in Toronto.
How many targets have you hit? How many homes? How many businesses?
In Canada, around, I think, 30 or 35, 40.
In BC, letters like this have been sent to businesses in Abbotsford threatening violence if the owner doesn't pay. And in White Rock, a shooting was linked to the extortion attempts. 2 men were arrested, but no charges have been laid.
This is an issue that we take very seriously. I know individuals in the Lower Mainland in particular, and in fact in other parts of the province, have been very concerned about the extortion threats.
I think that we can certainly be satisfied that there's an international component and that there's very likely organized crime involved.
Today, RCMP announced the formation of a national coordination and support team that will help local police departments gather evidence in these extortion cases.
Our goal is to support and coordinate as necessary where they're interconnected with each other and help the ability for the police of jurisdiction to solve their investigations.
Everybody's working together to deal with this issue, and that I look forward to the people being arrested, charged, prosecuted, and put away for a long time.
RCMP are hopeful the creation of the national support team will convince extortion victims who've been reluctant to come forward to contact local law enforcement.
If you're concerned for your safety, speak with them. And we want to work with you and come up with ways that we can support your capacity and ability to deal with the problems when they come up, like the phone calls or whatever it may be.
The man who told CTV News he's behind dozens of extortions says many victims are paying out of fear for their businesses and their lives.
How much money would you say you've collected so far?
Around $1.5 million.
RCMP want him and other possible perpetrators to know the coordinated team and local law enforcement won't rest until they're caught. Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
Another member of BC United is walking away from provincial politics. One of the longest-serving MLAs in BC's history is saying goodbye to Victoria at the end of his 8th term. But the question now is, does he have his eyes on Ottawa?
After walking these halls for 30 years, Mike DeYoung confirmed today he won't be running again as a candidate for BC United in the upcoming election.
Earlier this week, I spoke to Kevin Falcon, and I told him that I wouldn't be seeking re-election for a 9th term.
The Abbotsford West MLA denies his retirement from provincial politics is motivated by his party's sagging poll numbers and its challenges rebranding itself from the BC Liberals to BC United.
Almost harder for me to leave, recognizing that there is a challenge. This is not going to be an easy election for my team.
Still, DeYoung acknowledges he is considering running for Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives, a party riding high in recent polls, seemingly poised to form government if a federal election were held now.
It's a big decision and an important one, and I'll take some time to consider what that may look like.
First elected back in 1994 in Matsqui, DeYoung served for 16 years as a cabinet minister, including as finance minister and attorney general. His departure, the latest blow for a party that also recently lost another high-profile MLA, Ellis Ross, who's confirmed he'll be a candidate for the federal Conservatives.
When people don't see the old candidates there, the incumbents, that may create more voter confusion on when it comes to voting day.
At this point, 9 out of 26 BC United MLAs have confirmed they won't be running in the next provincial election, and this latest loss is significant.
He's a legend around the BC legislature, and after 30 years, he's decided to hang up his hat.
DeYoung will be back when the legislature resumes next week, his final session here after 3 decades.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast is supposed to see increasing cloudiness in addition to a low of 1 degree. The Terrace-Kitimat area is likely to have increasing cloudiness of its own, and its low down at -6 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is forecast to have only clear skies, but an ultra-cold low of -20 degrees. On the North Coast, the next week or so will mostly be a combo of clouds and sun with some possible rain mixed in, and a high moving between 7 and 8 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their week will deal with mostly clouds seemingly, but won't be without sun as well, and will get highs ranging from 1 to 5 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the week for them begins with sunny conditions, but changes into all cloudy days, and the high will shift from -6 to 2 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there are slippery sections, utility work maintenance, and roadside brushing, plus the Usk Ferry is out of service and the cable car is in effect. Highway 37 has some slippery sections too, while also having compact snow as well as various bits of maintenance. 37A has slippery sections too, some slippery sections and electrical maintenance on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections of its own. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, a wildlife group discussed how recent temperature swings are affecting animals. Welcome back. A Burnaby wildlife group says this winter's extreme temperature swings are having a negative impact on wildlife. Just last month, the group received an influx of calls about distressed animals. As CTV's Isabella Zavarisi explains, the organization is bracing for a busy next few months.
From an unseasonably warm December To a blast of Arctic air in January, the sharp change in weather is taking a toll on BC's wildlife. One animal organization seeing calls for help spike last month.
We saw over 20 hummingbirds come into us over a few days period. Most of the hummingbirds had injuries to their tongues because feeders, they were trying to access food and the feeders were frozen from the extreme temperatures.
The Wildlife Rescue Association of BC was able to nurse some of the hummingbirds back to health, but not all.
Some unfortunately did pass away due to the extent of their injuries.
Struggling to survive not only the frigid temperatures, but now the association says warmer conditions are leading to earlier hatching.
A gosling has already hatched in the Lower Mainland, and when I look back in our records, even from the last 10 years, the earliest reports that we were seeing were a full month later. So that's significant.
Babies being born earlier could put a strain on the organization's resources and on the animals trying to adapt.
It may mean that once their babies hatch, their food is not available. What they need to thrive is not in season at the same time.
As the climate warms, the rescue is also being introduced to new species.
Last December, where we had a prothonotary warbler come to us, and that was a species that at that time of year we shouldn't find in our region and actually should have been down in Central America.
The rescue is anticipating a busy spring season, expecting to admit hundreds of injured or young birds. If you're out in your backyard and see one, it's urging you to give it a call so it can help save more animals in distress. Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News, Burnaby.
Thousands of ride-sharing drivers took a break from behind the wheel and staged a global walkout recently in a call for higher wages. CTV's Craig Krause reported from YVR, where Uber and Lyft drivers came together to demand a new deal.
Vancouver area rideshare drivers demanding a larger piece of the pie. Indiraj Gill is one of the drivers around the world who took to the streets after what he calls years of being taken advantage of.
So we are together today just to show that we are not taking this anymore. The companies have been taking us for granted for a very, very long time.
Gill and others say the issue lies when they're considered on the clock, only being paid if and when they get a customer, unlike other professions when they get a consistent wage.
These companies have to give us the kind of working conditions that a regular person in Canada today gets. And that is what we deserve as well.
For us, car has gone up, car prices are gone up, maintenance has gone up, everything is going up, our wages are going down.
But will this protest make an impact? Well, according to Uber, these demonstrations haven't historically. Writing in a statement, that's because the vast majority of drivers are satisfied. Earnings remain strong, and as of last quarter, drivers in Vancouver were making $36.03 during engaged time per hour before tips.
If they are working in British Columbia, they are entitled to a minimum standards and protections like other workers.
That was Labour Minister Harry Bains back in November, unveiling proposed employment standards for gig workers with Uber, Skip the Dishes, and other app-based services, including minimum earnings, a standard that Uber says would pay drivers an hourly minimum wage of $16.75 during engaged time. But drivers say it's not enough with the cost of living.
We guys are working 15 to 18 hours every day, every single day if we want to just make the ends meet. That's not the right ways to work in Canada.
And now the drivers tell me that they're hoping that their voices will be heard and that the company makes changes, or more of these demonstrations could happen down the road. Craig Krause, CTV News, Richmond.
Turning now to shocking video of a car chasing down teenagers down in Abbotsford Street. It happened a couple of days ago with the driver apparently using their car as a weapon to hit two of the young people. But the question is why? CTV's Martin McMahon has the story and warning some may find the current upcoming video troubling.
Dramatic home security video obtained by CTV News shows the moment a driver chased the trio down Carlsruhe Avenue Wednesday afternoon before hitting two of the boys. Police believe they were intentionally struck. They suffered minor injuries, and police are aware of reports this began with the boys playing Nicky Nicky Nine Doors. That's a prank where someone knocks on a door and runs away.
And we soon learned that the incident had evolved
or was predated by some sort of argument or disturbance, to later having a driver intentionally use a vehicle as a weapon, colliding with two youths.
People who live in the neighborhood are concerned. They say whatever the kids did beforehand, this isn't acceptable.
It was said that they were doing knocky knocky 9-door, and I thought, well, this man is mad and he's gonna try and chase them that way, which looked really dangerous to me.
They're kids. Kids shouldn't have to get hurt for, doesn't matter what a kid does. There's no reason to react that aggressively, with a car especially.
The man was arrested at the scene and police plan to forward charges to Crown Counsel for approval.
This, from the onset, from learning these details, has been very concerning to us. I don't need to elaborate on how dangerous and potentially fatal using a vehicle is.
On Thursday, city crews installed a barrier to prevent cars from going through this path. Police are asking anyone with more information to come forward. Officers and neighbors tell us they're just grateful nobody was seriously hurt or worse. Martin McMahon, CTV News, Abbotsford.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 0.05 of a cent, the price of gold is up $9.20, oil is up 87 cents, natural gas is up 3 cents, aluminum is down $11. In Toronto, the TSX is up 32.92 points, the Venture Index is up 4.27, in New York, the Dow Jones is down 145.13, and the Nasdaq is down 130.52. Still ahead, major junior hockey leagues are seeing serious accusations sent towards them. Welcome back. Major junior hockey leagues across Canada have been named in a lawsuit. They are accused of being part of a cartel. The case has been filed in New York federal court against the 3 major junior hockey leagues in Canada, the QMJHL, OHL, WHL, and even the NHL. The plaintiffs include former major junior players who argue the leagues colluded to exploit players, separate teenagers from their families, and pay players just $250 a month. For the first time in nearly 3 weeks, the Vancouver Canucks were back at Rogers Arena last night.
Pettersson with Hoaglander. Elias Pettersson cuts in, lost the handle, centers with Lindholm, scores.
Elias Lindholm scored twice last night to help boost the Canucks to a 4-1 win against Detroit. Thatcher Demko made 27 saves for his league-leading 30th win of the season. The Canucks will be back on home ice tomorrow night against the Winnipeg Jets. The BC Prosecution Service says it has appointed a special prosecutor following a police investigation into an alleged assault on a Crown lawyer earlier this month at the provincial courthouse in Vancouver's downtown east side. It says lawyer Chris Johnson has now approved charges against a man, including 1 count of assault, 1 count of bodily assault causing bodily harm. The man's next appearance is scheduled for today at the same courthouse. The prosecution service says Johnson's appointment was made to avoid any ethical issues that may arise in the administration of justice, given that one of the alleged victims is employed as Crown Counsel. That's all of our news for now. From everyone at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin. Thanks for watching.